The first question that's putting on the floor is about your education and your work background.
Yes, sure, Thanuja. So I am an engineer by profession. So I'm an engineer with electronics and communication as a degree. Eventually, throughout my career, I was working for a bank called HSBC. That's where I started my career, and that's the only company that I've ever worked for. Of course, I've taken multiple promotions, traveled the world for them, and my last role with them was as an associate vice president with HR transformation team. So that's my background. And once I became an entrepreneur, I even completed a course with IIM Calcutta on growth strategies for business. So that's essentially my educational and work background.
Great, sir. So, we would like to know about your startup, basically the startup name and the current team,
Right.
and your location wherever you guys are based.
Sure. So I've had multiple startups. Most of them failed, I must admit. So the one that we are incubating right now is called Udo Now, UDO Now app. It's primarily an expert advice on demand platform, trying to create a mentor discovery platform for users. But the critical thing is we're trying to do that on an instant connect basis. So no more forms to fill, no more, background matching of profiles. The users absolutely get a choice of who they want to get mentored by. They can go through profiles, and then if they like a mentor, if they get connected to a mentor, they're happy to talk to them on a chat, audio or a video call instantly if they're available, or schedule a call if they like somebody and they want to talk to a particular person. So that's a background. My team sit out of Hyderabad. Currently, we are incubating and we are bootstrapped. So we have a smaller team. So our total employee strength is about 10 people, most of them tech, since the product is in development. I do have a co-founder. His name is Komal, and he's been with me. He started out as my first employee when I started my first venture in 2010 after I quit my job. And he's been around ever since, and we've developed this amazing bond. He's grown up in terms of his competence and skills. So now we founded this together, and he takes care of all the technical developments for me. So that's about my startup.
So, what made you start out on your own? Like, basically, before starting it, there would be some kind of motivation or experience that you wanted
True.
to explore, right?
And for me, it was kind of weird because when I decided to quit my job, I was actually doing very, very well. And I super love that company. I think it's still one of the best companies to work for. I still partner with them. I'm a consultant for them. It's almost now 22 years of me associating with that company directly or indirectly. But for me, look, at the time when I quit, right? I mean, I don't want to suddenly sound very idealistic for a story. At the time, it was primarily because I wanted to make a much larger impact for myself to begin with, essentially make more money like most founders. But later in life, when I failed, two of my startups terribly failed. I lost all my money. I was staring at bankruptcy, and I had some pause in life, which was forced, of course, but I had some pause in life, and I went through a lot of activities around finding my purpose, because I was running around like a headless chicken, quit a great paying job in a senior management position. So I was wondering, is there something else that's probably subconsciously driving me to do this? Is it really money? Because I had money at one point of time, then I had lost it. So that's when I realized there are primarily two reasons why, even without my knowledge perhaps, I always wanted to start up and build a great product, a great company. One, essentially my own upbringing, coming from a conservative middle class background. I've always wanted to go beyond a middle class, I guess, subconsciously, because I've seen my parents work really, really hard, give more than their 100%, sometimes even at the cost of family time. And two, now that I realize is, somebody asked me a question when I was going through that tough time, that imagine you had all the money in the world. You're sorted for the rest of your life. You had money with abundance. What's the one thing that would give you the greatest pleasure in your life? And the person was expecting me to talk about cars or houses or international travel. But almost impulsively, I said, I wanted to do something for animals. And I wanted to rescue and work towards urban strays, dogs, cats, cattle, snakes, So that came out as an impulsive response from me. And that's when I truly realized that, this is probably what I would do if I had the money today. And therefore, I rewired myself to look at the value that I'll add rather than how much money I'll make. And the moment that shift in my thought process happened is when I didn't have to look back. And that's when I started actually becoming successful. Very long answer to a very simple question, Tanuja, but
Yes,
this
that
is the
would
background.
be right. That would be very helpful to add on to the article as well. So then you said you are basically from the engineer background, right?
Correct.
And having been on a corporate field that you loved your job, I would like to know how your previous job helped you throughout your entrepreneurial journey.
I owe everything that I am today to my previous employer. Got exposed to the best of culture. I've exposed to the best of mentors and people that I worked with. I was exposed to working with various geographies because I traveled a lot for my previous employer. That gave me an opportunity to work with people across various countries, various cultures. That is priceless for me as I try to build global products today. That experience has been priceless because now I'm well versed with, how Far East Asia is, how Middle East is, how Europe is, how, US is or UK is distinctively in their cultures, how diverse they are compared to our own. I think that has been one of the biggest learning for me. And to take care of your employees, right? End of the day, yes, it's an employment contract. It is about, paying them a salary, X amount of salary for Y amount of work. But I also do realize that some of the best companies in the world with the best employee retention percentages perhaps are not the greatest paymasters. So
Right.
there's something beyond pay that makes people stick together, and I've experienced that with my previous employer. So that for me was one of the biggest learnings, and two of my life-changing mentors come from where my ex-bosses. So I've been lucky from that perspective. So overall, these three things, right? Exposure, culture, orientation, and mentors.
Yes, so that's great. And I also hope that might be helping you a lot in the journey today. So,
Thank you.
and your everyday pleasures and pains of being a founder, ups and downs of being a founder.
There are many. Luckily for me, after almost 13 years of being an entrepreneur, the pleasure seems to be increasing more than the pains, but it's inevitable as an entrepreneur, especially in a country like India, at least at the time when I started, when not a lot of people were talking about startups. But to kind of summarize what I believe are pains, I think is to stay relevant to your customer, your end customer. It's not about what you think is a great idea. It's about going out there in the market, talking to your consumers, your end clients, the ones who are paying for your products, understand from them, and to be able to come back and build products that still stick to your business model or your initial concept of why you started out. But the ability to go out there and understand those nuances of what the customer desires is a big pain point, because yes, today we have access to a lot of data. There are a lot of companies who can help you with some numbers and interesting insights from consumer behavior. But to be conscious, to be aware of it and still build products, I think is one of my biggest pains as an entrepreneur. Also, I think the expectation of people in terms of the people that work for me. One of the startups that I exited had a lot more people than what I have right now. But to kind of make it relevant for them to understand that it's also their journey, not just the founders. Because in startups that can happen, where the focus and decision making is always with the founders. Sometimes it's a challenge to keep your teams engaged with you, with your vision, and for allowing them to see what you want them to see, but also be conscious about their suggestions to your vision. I think that's another one of my biggest pains. In terms of pleasure, just to be able to make a difference, just to be able to employ people and create employment, just to be able to make a small, perhaps, difference to India, I think. And I'm not trying to sound very sensationalistic here, but it truly is. And like they say, right, you'll only understand the joy of being a parent when you're a parent.
Right.
Similarly, the joy of being an entrepreneur, to wake up and to be excited about it every single day. We don't have weekends, we don't have paydays to the most part. But to still be able to stand up, be able to sacrifice your time with family and go out there and build a product, I find it one of my most exhilarating joys of life. So that's a pleasure that I can talk about, Tanuja.
That's great, sir. And moving on, sir, every entrepreneur in their journey will get an opportunity to like evolve as a person. So they won't be as same as they started before because they get to see a lot of things on a day-to-day basis. So on having this as a base, I would like to ask your strength and your weakness that you have known after being a founder for a time now.
My biggest strength, I think, is I have a few strengths, but if you ask, my biggest strength is empathy, and that also is my biggest weakness. Empathy, because I'm able to connect with people, I'm able to understand things from their perspective. That also is probably why I'm so successful as a career growth evangelist. Now I travel across the globe, almost 60 plus clients that I work with in terms of their leadership development. One of the reasons why I'm able to be that successful is also my empathy, but at the same time it also is my weakness, because sometimes I tend to overdo it at the cost of business metrics. And of course, that's not always the right way to do business. So that's something that I've been conscious about in my previous venture. In my current venture, that I wasn't in my previous venture. So if I have to pinpoint to one, I would say my strength and my weakness is my empathy.
So then what are the important skills that you think would be important for an entrepreneur to take on his journey? Like according to your experience as a founder.
The biggest for me is to be a lifelong learner, because things change as an entrepreneur every day. And I know people have made it a cliche, but it is so true that every day you will learn something. You will either learn something by succeeding, you'll either learn something by not succeeding, but there is learning every day, all right. So I think to be a lifelong learner, to not get anything get to your head. It could be as a startup, just that first visiting card that you've printed with the tag CEO that I see a lot of people flash these days. It's great. It's definitely an achievement, but don't let that into your head. Just because you're a founder now doesn't make anybody that work with you any less skilled than you are. In fact, a lot of times they are probably more skilled than you are on certain aspects of the business. So I think to be a lifelong learner, to be open to learn from your team members, to be open, first of all, to ask for feedback and ask for their suggestions, and to have the heart to accept it and actually make those changes. And two, I think, is your ability to pivot. Because you're being a lifelong learner, your ability to pivot, even if that means that you've thought of a great business idea that you thought it would work, your teams perhaps are not okay with it, or eventually you try to go to the market and the market's kind of telling you different things. Make it okay to come back to the drawing table and say, hey, we tried, seems like this is not working out, so what else can we do? And to be able to pivot your business idea. Amazon perhaps is one of the biggest examples of a great pivot. Started out selling books, today they sell everything, A to Z, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a great skill. And three is adaptability quotient. I keep talking about it in so many of my podcasts as well. In the previous years, we got jobs and we got success with our IQ. And then as things started getting slightly more digitized and automated, then came about the humanness of our being, which is emotional quotient. But today, especially the last few years of how the market is behaving, how things are changing around us in various countries, what has become important is for people to have something called AQ, which is adaptability quotient. How resilient have you made yourself by learning new skills, by staying updated with what is happening around you, that even if something is thrown at you, you're able to quickly muster the courage to adapt to the new change. Think about which IT person had experience of sending desktops to people's homes so that they could work from home. Because not every company could afford laptops for everybody. So I know of companies that have actually sent thousands of their desktops to people's homes during the pandemic so that they could work from home. Now imagine which support guy, which procurement guy, which IT guy had that skill before the pandemic? None. But when adversity strikes, a group of people got together and they made that happen across the globe. That's adaptability quotient. It doesn't matter what your experience is. What matters is how have you trained yourself to stay resilient. So I think these are some of the skills that I definitely would wish, and definitely financial education. That's another top. Most startups today are founded by tech people, and they may or may not always have knowledge of finance, but it is essential that they upskill themselves and get basic knowledge on financials as well. So these are some of my key skills.
That's absolutely inspiring. So, and what keeps you going during the tough times? Like entrepreneurship, though it gives all the pleasure, but as well it takes the uncertainties too. So, in case every day has something to offer, right? So, ups
Absolutely.
and downs. So, what keeps you going when it seems to be a tough time?
So I would like to get your attention to a Bhagavad Gita phrase that in fact, even in my TED talk, I start with it. And I truly mean it. I just didn't by heart it for the sake of the talk. It goes like, Bandhuratmatmanastasya enatmaivatmana jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. What that really means is when you conquer your mind, it becomes your friend. When you don't, it becomes your enemy. So what I today go around the world telling people is, don't do earth-shattering stuff. Just do one thing. Every time you think you're in a stressful situation, it could be a small thing like a traffic jam when you least expected it. But the first thing that I tell people is, notice your self-talk. Don't notice what's going around you. Notice what the person between your ears is telling you. And if it is negative, in all probability, you are stressed out, and whatever action you take or whatever decision you take, when the person between your ears is telling you something negative, is not going to be productive. So there is a ritual that I now ask people to do, which is every time you feel stuck, angry, frustrated, dejected, or feeling rejected with all the layoffs that are happening recently, the first thing I ask them to do is stop, pause, and ask just one question. What is your bigger battle in life? Is your bigger battle that boss who's troubling you at work? Or is your bigger battle the great financial stability you want to give to your family? The dream house you want to buy, the dream car you want to drive, or your larger purpose in life that you want to meet eventually? What's your bigger battle? Is that your traffic jam? Or is that the meeting that you need to get to? What's your bigger battle? Because the power to be positive is natural to us. It's just our conditioning over the years that has made us extremely negative as people. So the only thing, in fact, I've asked people to do is, if you want to change your life, just learn the art of pausing and asking yourselves, what's your bigger battle? Because the moment you ask that question, you have all the answers and you don't need anybody else. What you need to do in that moment when you're getting stressed out becomes clear to you, and in all probability, you're probably doing something that is more productive towards your larger battle. So that's how I would probably do it, and that's what I suggest to everyone.
Right. So actually, that question had me thinking for a while. That was a great one, giving you all the answers though. So moving on, I would like to know the support of your family in your journey as a founder.
For a long time, Thanuja, I was just grateful for my parents working so hard to give me a great childhood. As I age and as I get a lot more wiser with every year, today I look back and I think the biggest gift that they've given me is not my childhood. The biggest gift they've given me is the values that they've imbibed in me. And that I can never be more thankful than I already am. And I'm always indebted to them for that. Because today I talk about something called my code of honor. So I have 4 or 5 things which I've written down as my code of honor, which is what I'm driven by. These are my value systems. And come what may, my code of honor today is not for negotiation. It's non-negotiable. So for me, the biggest thing that has happened is the fact that they've made me more spiritual, they've made me more grounded, and they've made me more practical at the same time. So that is one way. And I cannot but mention my uncles, my immediate family members, like my mom's younger brother, my friends, I think a lot of credit to who I am today, I give it to equally to my friends as much as my parents, because they are the ones who kind of gave me the cushion. They were the ones who were running behind me as I was experimenting with my life, carrying those pillows and mattresses so that they're always there to ensure they catch me so that I don't fall. And even if I do fall, I didn't hurt myself too much. So I think it's been phenomenal. I couldn't be more grateful to my parents and my friends.
And a few things you wish someone had told you before you started out.
Oh dear Lord, I can actually write. In fact, I'm actually planning to write. My second book is going to be that, How Not to Start Up. Right? So, because I've had so many failures. But I look, I mean, today I think we celebrate funding more than we celebrate profits. Unfortunately, we've gotten into a very strange space where, today companies celebrate, and there are so many media houses that celebrate funding. There are some famous media houses that report on startups, and in fact, they reported me also earlier. And I look back at startups that have been reported 2 years ago. 90% of them are not even in existence today. So what were we really celebrating? So I think the basics of business cannot be ignored. And what are those? Those are you profitable to begin with? How much is too much burn? Can you just keep wasting money, throwing money just to acquire customers? How many people today even understand unit economics? So essentially what I tell people is, if you're planning to start up, the biggest thing that I advocate today is validating your idea. If there are 4 friends sitting at a coffee shop discussing that this is a brilliant idea, God bless you. I really hope you will be successful. But what have you done to validate whether this is true? If it is so obvious as an idea, and yet none of the big players have taken it up, if you're so confident that this will make hundreds of crores, why haven't the big businesses picked it up? Is it because you're so unique in your idea, or are there some challenges that they chose? It probably doesn't make sense to get in here. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. But this is the line of questioning that will help you validate your idea first. And I do really hope you figure that and make those hundreds of crores. But the point is, what data do you have to back up every single claim of yours that got you excited to start up? If you don't have that, go find one. The second thing is, funding is easy. There are enough people with money that are interested to invest in startups. But what most startups don't seem to get, especially at the early stages, is just by having an idea on paper does not guarantee funding. Do you have an MVP? Do you have a minimum viable product? It doesn't matter how ready it is, but do you at least have something like a prototype that you can test out and prove to the investors that your idea does work? So MVP, prototyping, very, very important according to me. And the third most important thing is traction. It doesn't matter if you're getting paid customers or not. Do you at least have customers who have tried your product and given you feedback? Because that is essential for startup growth. Without customers, I would not think there are investors who are ready to invest even a rupee in a startup. Now, again, like I said, without the traction could just be 10 people, 50 people and through those 50 people, you're able to show them that this is a business model that can be extrapolated into a larger market. So essentially for me, especially for upcoming startups, these 3 things are key. And then comes your product, your infrastructure, what you're building, and how you plan to go to market. But the first 3 steps, validating the idea, getting down to an MVP, and getting traction, is essential for startups, if you ask me.
Right. That's actually a lot of things. Basically, experience teaches us everything.
Thank you.
That's true. And nowadays, especially in India, there are many youngsters who are coming up with new startups, and there are many students who need guidance. So our main focus of Founder Life team is to inspire them through your experience and ideas. So I would like to ask you a few things that you would wish to tell the youngsters, whoever is starting right now. not even the youngsters, the adults, whoever is starting, before they start out? Like a few things that you want to tell them before they start out.
Great question, Tanuja. I think I'll start. I would like to bifurcate this question into two parts. One for the students, and one for people perhaps who are already in careers, professions, who probably want to get back to being on their own. For students, I think connect, network. If you have a startup idea, great, but at least spend 6 to 8 months interning for a similar company, perhaps, or any company, even if they're not paying you. Because essentially there are things, ideas are great, building tech is great, but just because you have a great product doesn't guarantee that you'll build a great company. We've had so many companies who've built fantastic products, but failed when it came to building great companies and great organizations. So I think for students, start early, start at second year. If you're doing engineering, talk to people, go to LinkedIn and say, hey, I want to learn and I'm ready to work for free. These are my strengths. And do that, because it is goldmine what you can learn practically working for a startup. How is the CEO behaving? What kind of teams did they create? What kind of people did they partner with, even if they didn't have the money? How are they getting people to work for them and not wait just for some magical investor to come, what we call angel investors, to come and fund? Even before you get there, how are they able to influence another two people about how kicked they are about this idea, right? Because tomorrow you may have to do it with the investors too. So how do you therefore inspire somebody else to believe in you so much that they'll come and join you? So these are life lessons that you need to learn first. And that can only happen when you're actually a part of a company, not by listening to online lectures. So that's my biggest suggestion for students. And the second thing I want to tell students is, today, the environment in India is amazing for startups. There is enough money with the government, enough funds allocated to startups every year. Unfortunate that more than 70% of those funds are never utilized because people are busy looking for angels when the government has already created funds from our own taxpayer money. Go utilize it. Anything can be done. Everybody should be an entrepreneur. If not a startup, you would have become an entrepreneur and be ready for a career in a job better than anybody else, because, hey, you've actually had the courage to try building something on your own, and that is indispensable. When it comes to the others who probably are already in jobs, or perhaps already married and have great careers and now wanting to start on their own, please ensure that you at least have 6 months of your monthly expenses saved in liquidity in your account. This is not your other savings. This is just your lifestyle expenses, because what stresses you out in the first 3 or 4 months as a startup founder is your ability to take care of your family. You have signed up for this. In a way, your family is also signing up for this, but at least ensure that they're not going through a lot more difficulties than what you probably signed up for. So I think at least having 6 months of your lifestyle expenses, your statutory expenses saved, apart from a capital that is required to start up. Without this, don't please start up. And this is a lesson even for the students alike. Starting up is not an alternate to employment. Starting up is sacrificing many, many, many years of your life, where even if you're on a vacation, all you could think of is your business. So there's never really a vacation for an entrepreneur until the company is established and you're consciously trying to take a break. But it is a commitment for at least another decade. So please understand that just because you lost your job and you're not getting another job, don't start up. Just because you're a student, you didn't make it through campus placement, so now you suddenly want to start up. Bad ideas. And as I always say, please learn. If you're already in a job, don't quit your job. Start figuring out how you can bootstrap this company without you having to quit your job. Talk to people while you still have the financial stability. Take time, build a prototype without quitting. And when you see what you wanted to see, when you're proud of what you've built, is when you quit and you go full throttle, being proud about your product to the rest of the world. So that's my take.
Right. So that the answer was so perfect. Like, it was so on point. So I hope this will go on to the article and it will have a great impact on the our audience too. So, and
Thank you.
finally, would you like to mention anything else apart from this regarding your startup or your founder experience in the article?
No, I think this is pretty much it. I've been lucky to have worked with some brilliant organizations with the likes of World Economic Forum, doing some great work for India. I'm also a part of a group called Sitara, which is a think tank, really trying to help India become more Atmanirbhar or indigenous. That is something that I'm super proud of. So this is a group that's formed with eminent personalities, ex-ambassadors to the countries, to India. I mean, ex-ambassadors of India to various countries. And we try to look at various sectors like science, innovation, technology, agriculture, defense. And we try and identify indigenous startups and help them in with either the knowledge, the support sometimes that they require with the government, or even funds. So that's another thing that I'm super proud of in terms of what I'm able to, in my little ways, give back to the country. We've already had some great success stories. So yeah, so that's probably another thing. And very soon, I'm actually going to bring out all these learnings as an online course. So I've recently founded something, a company called virtualguru.online. And this will be an online platform to help professionals grow in their careers and startups have a great experience as entrepreneurs. So that's probably something that I wanted to add.
That's totally great, sir. And with this, the questions comes to an end.